Good afternoon. I'd like to call to order the Ramsey-Washington Metro Watershed District July board meeting. First item on the agenda is approval of the agenda. Before we do that, we had a workshop that we'd like to continue conversations on. So I would propose that we add an item between 2 and 3 before the consent agenda to close out and complete the workshop meeting that we had previously. And so what I would need is a motion to approve the agenda as amended. We can then transition to closing and finishing our workshop.
Motion to approve the agenda as amended. Seconded.
Okay, assuming no discussion, do I have all in favor say aye?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed say nay. All abstain say abstain. Okay, so item 2.5. Let's close on the agenda. Do you mind resharing the presentation?
Yeah, just to be clear, we had a workshop started at 5. We didn't complete all our discussions, so we'd just like to finish our discussion now on the agenda, which is about the draft implementation table. And I'm going to share our screen here with the presentation on where we left off.
Okay.
Here. And is this where we left off, or was it on that?
Yeah, no, this was it.
Okay, yep. All right, so in this question, we're asking that if you could add one implementation activity that isn't represented today, what would it be? We had some of that discussion earlier, but if there's other things that you'd like to mention, I've heard drought, I've heard fish. Gotta look at how you
Fish passage.
Fish passage. You know, we talked about the chlorides maybe being feeling unrepresented in the implementation table.
I was just under being it if it just had one thing. Is that fair? Is that what you're going after second? Being underrepresented?
Underrepresented or feeling that way because of the
yeah.
Is there anything else that you'd like to call out?
No, I really comprehensive. The one that I kept searching for just to see if I was elevated. I'll make it a comment. I don't think it's missing. We should have a lot of conversations over the last 6 months on like we were sitting on data to help us drive decisions, et cetera. I know there is a line item for there for data management in terms of the title. If we're talking about things that might be underrepresented but enablers for the entire vision, that feels like a foundational aspect that we'll probably need to lean into. That's the only comment I'll make. I think it's there. It's just there's I think one item associated to it. The word data obviously can be found elsewhere.
Sure. Yeah. Well, then let's get some final thoughts. So this question is, somebody's looking at this at the end of our 10-year plan in 2037. What do you hope they say we accomplished, or like what would be the big highlights of the work that we've done between now and then?
I can just think of words that pop up in my mind. Proactively addressing issues, leveraging the information at hand to make the most educated decisions, doing things in innovative ways using the most relevant technologies to solve the challenges, things to that effect. I just think it's fake phrases.
So I think back to Roosevelt Homes, and I think kind of what the residents there are probably feeling that our project made a substantial difference in their quality of life.
Response to that question of what do you hope they say? I would hope that they might thank G. It was good forward, well organized, and good forward thinking, with both specificity as well as core watershed work.
would kind of echo everything that's been said, but I would also hope that they see that it's done in a fiscally responsible manner.
In other words, optimizing, so I really like to be thought of as partners through this, you know, being that critical partner, helping get things done. I love the quality of life one. It would be wonderful if we had a list of people who want to be on this board because of what we've done after 10 years.
Just improvement in quality of life and then productive, innovative process.
Like we gave you enough information to throw that in the chat.
I know. Yeah. Good. Anything else about that? Anything else, Greg, that you wanted to get from that? Or?
No, I think those are great answers. I will highlight this one thing. It came up a few months ago where, you know, making sure that we're thinking about things equitably across the communities is baked into each of the things. And so I do want to recognize that we're doing our best to kind of bring everyone up together.
So the next steps in plan development, as we mentioned at the beginning of the workshop, this is the abbreviated version of the implementation table in the sense that there are some logistical details that need to get worked in. So we're not adding to the rows, we're adding to the columns. So we will take a crack at that, assign some tentative priorities to things, and send a revised implementation table to the TAC for their individual review and comment. We're not planning on convening the TAC for a separate workshop ahead of the 60-day review, but we would still send this out for their information and review. And then we'll compile the complete draft plan and send that to you as managers in mid to late August for your review, with the intent that we're going to try and distribute the plan for a 60-day review in September. So I think the idea is to get that plan out to you in August so that you can come back with any comments necessary to address prior to review at the September meeting. Okay.
Yeah, because you said we'll be asking you in September to authorize us to send it out for review. It won't go out, you know, the day after the board meeting. So there might be some opportunities still to provide comments if.
Can we expect that would be a draft with quote complete plan? So I'm thinking specifically about the narrative component.
Yeah.
Yes, you would. The draft that you would get in August would be sort of the full thing.
Narrative, metrics, etc.
Yep.
Can I ask you a clarifying question? So will we have motion then in September to
Distribute it.
Okay, good, understood. Thank you.
Yeah, and there's there's the official 60-day review. We'll receive comments. We'll respond to comments. So there's still a lot of time there to make changes to things. So it's really just getting it into that phase so that we can move in the right direction. I mean, I would anticipate too, if you I know that table was a lot overwhelming. You just got it last, Friday. So if you continue to want to look at it and want to send comments, send them to me, and we can incorporate those into our edits as we move forward.
Okay, perfect.
And we anticipate that you may have comments at that September meeting as well. But the goal would be that they're minor to the degree that you're comfortable with staff addressing them and then distributing the plan without another thorough review by the managers.
Right.
Should we proactively anticipate comments, knowing that we're going to receive it off board packet review schedules and plan out a workshop sometime prior to that September kickoff? We could talk about logistics later.
Yeah, we can talk about that. Maybe a workshop ahead of that meeting.
I'm just thinking, we had a lot of comments on this particular one, which is good. Again, very appreciative around that. Just knowing that we probably will have a bolus in September if we plan for workshop night.
Any other questions about next steps?
Okay.
Yeah.
No motion required. Perfect. Jumping back to the item number 3, the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
May I ask to request a withdrawal for 3C1? It's the stewardship grant 2627.
Okay, we can
Withdraw that from the.
We'll have to amend the agenda
Yeah,
to remove the, so we'll need a motion to amend the agenda
Yeah.
to remove.
if you don't,
So can I motion to amend the agenda to remove under the stewardship grant program, item 1, 2627?
do I have a second? Second. Okay, all in favor say aye.
I,
All opposed say nay. Abstain. Tina, let's move 2627 as a stewardship grant program under the 6C, if that's okay. Or, yeah,
Or 6A.
Or six, yeah, we can bump 6A, call 6A1 or something like that. No problem.
It is, yeah, so it just can go under 6A.
Yeah, I'll do that. And after that, great. Moving forward, now that we've approved the agenda, do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended?
seconded.
Wonderful. I want to open it up for comments or questions, just to influence voting. For the board discussion. I'm really excited to see. I have just a question on 2630. We've gone back and forth and totally understand the value of the street sweeping efforts as we're pursuing it. Looking at how we've allocated funds and other folks who've come in and requested funds. The city of St. Paul did request funds last year. How did it compare? How does it compare to this year?
Similar. Last year they requested 100,000. I think they spent or requested to be reimbursed for like 99,000.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
they're doing a lot of extra sweeping.
Super happy. Just wanted a reference point.
Yep.
Let's see. That was the only question I had. Any further questions on the consent agenda? Yeah, I'm going to move to vote for the consent agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed say nay. All those abstain say abstain. I'm going to transition to visitor comments. The person who may be a visitor is Michael Miller. Any comments, or you have 4 minutes to share comments with the board? Okay. Then let's transition to the regulatory program.
All right, I can kick off permit application 2620. It's a reconstruction in the city of Maplewood. Includes underground treatment as well as some residential boulevard rain gardens. So they have at least 5 homeowners that have already committed, and they continue to do that outreach during the project, because sometimes they see their neighbors go in, they're like, okay, actually, I want one too. So I know the city is working with the homeowners in these sections. And there is a variance request for wetland buffer disturbance. So no impacts to wetland areas. There are 3 areas in which there is temporary disturbance planned for erosion control placement and roadway reconstruction, which is in kind. In those scenarios, you know, the existing wetland buffer requirements are not met because of the roads. And then there is one permanent change over existing conditions to the wetland buffer throughout the whole project, and that's the installation of a new flared end structure to discharge pre-treated stormwater. Because currently that roadway section is sort of a rural section, so it just sheet flows. There's no curb and gutter, there's no storm sewer. So they need to be able to get that water out of there. So I can take any questions. I tried to play with the amount of information regarding those wetlands and existing conditions to hopefully give some more clarification, and answer any questions you may have.
I have one question.
Yeah.
Kind of in regard to that last item that you mentioned where existing is more or less sheet flow.
Mhm.
The reconstruction is going to result in we'll call it directed flow.
Yeah.
So I'm curious if that will have a change, either increase, decrease in the volume of flow anticipated to the wetland.
No, there's a net decrease in impervious areas and so the volume and rates will be going down across the project. And they'll also have a sump structure prior to discharge where right now it's just untreated. So they'll be able to collect solids and sediment.
So that's part of the pretreatment.
Yeah. So that flared end structure will have a pretreatment sump that the city then vacuums out on a routine basis. They do that, Maplewood does that with all of their direct discharges to water bodies, and we require it for our permit. But
So recognizing that this permit has several kind of discrete street
yeah,
maintenance, construction activities, are there any other instances where the I just call it culvert, the MD flow changes are being made in terms of the volume of grade, sizing of culvert, placements in terms of location in that?
there's another flared end structure that's being reconstructed on a different street. I'd have to look at where that is, but yeah, I mean they had to meet our rate control rules, so in those sections of discrete roadways, like not increasing runoff rates to those wetland areas, and then overall demonstrating an increase in volume because they have the underground infiltration facilities, whereas now this entire neighborhood is untreated for stormwater. So yeah, it's actually a decrease in volume and rate. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Could you help me understand the rationale for utilizing the available bank credits? Just curiosity.
Yeah, just constraints within a pretty limited right of way and wetlands. I would say and utility conflicts as well. They're kind of shoehorning a lot of, there's no existing storm sewer, so I think they're having trouble spatially.
So
And they have a lot of bank credits.
for the infiltration of the water, the runoff of the water, I assume we have consulted and feel pretty good about that.
Yeah.
Is what I'm saying. Another question on, so I think what threw me is because I agree with what you said, it's a linear project. The total disturbance area is approximately 11 acres. How many of that 11 acres were actually already disturbed?
Can you put that another way?
That's the disturbance of street acreage, not
Oh, understood.
Wetland.
Thank you. So if we did a
the
comparison,
project.
that's perfect, and I appreciate that. So as I look through, there's certain buffer requirements we don't meet today.
Mhm.
There's one permanent change with the new flare end structure. What is that overall square footage area to said buffers? Just curious.
Yeah, I approximate that to be about 200 square feet.
And they're reducing permeable area too.
Yeah, it's not by a lot, I'd have to look, but there is a net decrease in impervious area. So they're narrowing street widths where they're able to. think it's less than half an acre, but maybe 0.4.
Don't have any further questions. Anyone else?
I just comment that, I think we're running into the truth in the next,
Yeah.
permit discussion as well, but this is maybe the 4th month. We've had wetland variance requests.
Yeah.
So it's just,
Buffer, wetland buffer.
Buffer.
yeah,
Yeah.
so it, in terms of rules and looking forward and it's something that,
Yeah.
we need to maybe have a conversation to think about.
I know some stuff are in the works, if I recall correctly.
Yeah.
Linear one.
I think there are a couple options. You know, if the board is comfortable with staff approving temporary wetland buffer disturbances, because we're the ones that are inspecting and enforcing the restoration of those areas. You know, that's something that we can incorporate in rule and or in process to eliminate, or I should say, reduce the amount of variance requests that you're seeing.
Yeah, so basically you would delegate that
Yeah.
decision to staff.
We've talked
For
about that a
temporary.
couple of times for temporary ones, especially with these, they're already in the buffer, they're gonna temporarily disturb the
Yeah.
buffer when they do construction. As long as the inspection processes are followed.
Yeah.
How do you want us to motion at a separate time? You want it here or a separate time?
We can do that right after the permit.
Why don't we close out both the permits here because they're very similar in that case and have a small discussion about it as a board and we can motion. Before we get to that topic, do we have a motion to approve permit 2620? Wonderful. Do we have a second? Any further discussions or questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed say nay. Abstain, say the same. Moving to 2621.
Yep, as you mentioned, similar, also County Road C, which was very confusing for me this month. I sent the wrong email to the wrong team because they're both County Road C. But this is a continuation of the County Road C reconstruction that the county is doing. And this is sort of a standalone bridge reconstruction, but it's, you know, on the eastern end of that you've already seen come across a couple months ago, I believe. So a reconstruction of an existing bridge over a BNSF railroad. They're proposing an iron enhanced filtration basin. And, you know, similar to the last permit, they are requesting temporary wetland and buffer impacts related to stormwater treatment. So essentially another flared end, although that's a replacement in kind, and erosion control as well.
I did have just one question because I am not an expert when it comes to seed mixes. They had a big description on the types of seed mixes being used. Mark, I know you have more experience. You two have been in these particular areas. I just wanted to open up to you two based off of y'all's judgment. It seems sufficient.
Yeah, off the top of my head, I don't remember what the seed mix was. But
It looks like they're doing a bit of turf grass in areas that they couldn't get to based off of some back and forth with the train or a railroad company.
And the other is like wet ditch.
Yeah, wet ditch, which I don't, that's the first time I've seen that one.
They were both MnDOT
Yeah,
standard
very
mixes.
common.
Okay.
I don't know that
They didn't with
it's
the
in the
number.
watershed's jurisdiction to be prescribing what seed mix needs to be used.
Is it sufficient for the area though? I just don't
Oh,
know.
yeah.
Okay.
And I think it's an attempt to try to increase the diversity. But yeah, it's a bit challenging area, so hopefully it succeeds. But
We do have some pretty stringent restoration requirements for disturbed buffers, so.
Yeah. Yeah, that was the only question that popped into mind when I looked at this particular. I am kind of curious, and maybe this is a bit off topic, if you don't mind me directing y'all to, I think it's figure 1C.
What page?
Yeah, sorry, buddy, 46.
Oh, that's in the last permit.
Well,
56, maybe?
No, I got the wrong thing.
Wrong permit.
Yeah, wrong permit. This wouldn't change my vote on the other permit anyway. I'll ask it offline. Thank you, Tina. I missed that. Just looking around too fast.
You got the county road season mixed up.
I can sympathize with you to go.
Ugh.
Yeah. Do I have a motion to approve permit number 2621?
So moved.
Second.
Wonderful. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. All those abstained say abstain. All right, as part of the regulatory programs, what I'd like to open up the conversation about these temporary buffer disturbances, knowing the inspection mechanisms that we have in place. The only thing that I'm off of this particular, well, we have inspection mechanisms and fairly rigorous, I believe, replanting and reseeding in those areas. I know over the course of the last year, we've had several of these where there's just linear programs coming, road work being done. Me personally having to drive past this particular area on the county road C a few times. I would love to see us find ways to accelerate the closure of those particular programs. I know permitting takes its own time. I'd be very comfortable with motioning a proposal to delegate responsibilities to staff for the approval of temporary buffer disturbances according to, I think it's rule E. Is that correct? Did I get that right?
Yeah.
And you correct me if I need to have a different way of saying that, Tina. I just was trying to figure it out.
I might, Lauren wants to jump in, she can too, just to make sure we're on the right track. I think how this would work and process is, you wouldn't see them as a variance request, but they would still be in the permit write-up, right? So you still see that there is temporary buffer disturbance, staff approved the variance request if this is allowed. And then they would go into consent agenda because they wouldn't have the variant, if that's the only variance request there is. And this would only be for temporary impacts to buffers, or in kind, like the road that's already too close to the wetland.
Yeah, that's a good call out on the in-kind piece. I didn't say that in mine.
Lauren, can something like that work?
Yes, I think that sounds appropriate. And of course, if staff ever is looking at it and thinks the board needs to take a closer look at it or have a larger discussion on the variance, then it can always go outside of the consent agenda. And I think staff has a good feel for what the board wants to spend that extra time on. So I think that's in line with how you already kind of treat the permits that go into the consent and not.
Can I ask a clarifying question?
Mm-hmm.
So on these permit applications, they always come through in some cases for us to approve, if you will. So there isn't a pathway to accelerate these linear programs outside of needing.
Well, so typically they're not just buffer, right? They're also stormwater management and
I respect that. I'm just trying to think through, because a lot of the stormwater management stuff, as we have been reviewing, typically have been thoroughly vetted both by our external consultants, but also by staff as we go through it. Just trying to figure out, is there a pathway to get them through faster is what I'm thinking.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that we've talked about. Varying watersheds have varying ways of doing this. Some are all staff approved. Some are, have a pathway for board approval versus staff approval.
Yeah, similar to my task for looking at other watersheds regarding inspection fees, if you're interested in hearing more about that, whether it's like a public project only thing or linear project only, maintenance projects, things like that. But I could compile some information that other watersheds do, staff approval versus board approval for permit applications, if that's of interest.
I think that would be a meaningful thing to consider, especially as we're looking at rules. There's certain things that, as I reflect back on the other ones I've personally, we've all reviewed. There are several things to check that I know we already do per our process that I think don't need the depth of debate that we're gonna bring on the board. I do think it's a reasonable interim step to say, hey, why don't we just say, we can put these as part of the consent agenda as opposed to breaking them out for now, while you report and figure out and compile what's happening across these other urban watersheds.
Yeah, and I could potentially roll it into a rule change based on the feedback that I get from you all. Yeah. There is I think that we're one of the only, well, I don't know about that. We have board meetings once a month. Some other watershed districts have them more frequently, 2 to 3 weeks a month, or every 2 to 3 weeks. So, I do see a value in that.
Yeah, I don't want to make a call on totally pulling them off the agenda as I was originally going down. Now that we've had this discussion, I would propose is doing a delegate to staff in terms of the approvals, but then still seeing them in the consent agenda. We said it way better earlier. I don't know.
We did set up that process through board action for, like single lot residential permits to streamline that. So I could definitely bring some options.
Another way to potentially track this. I don't have a problem with delegating staff. I think it's, Val says, there's a lot of vetting and a lot of eyes and a lot of examination of this, and it's pretty much for naught in most cases. There's a lot of options. But I'm wondering if it would be doable to include just a number, a bullet, that there were 3 in the monthly regulatory report, and that's outside the consent agenda. So if there is, it's not specific to a given project, but if there's, I need to, kind of re-examine, there's a whole bunch of these or whatever. It could be an opportunity to maybe have a short conversation.
I think it's helpful for you two to see what's going on in the watershed, what projects are.
I mean, how I heard it is it would be similar to like the stewardship grant program, where it'd still be a bullet point with something like the same thing in the packet just earlier. So if someone wanted to pull it to talk about it, they could.
I think that's the right first step
Yeah.
toward this, because these linear programs, they're gonna happen, they're gonna continually happen. I bet you good money in about 5, 6 years, you're gonna see another county road C in the same area come back through or something similar. So I was just trying to think through, I like what you proposed, Ben. I get where Mark is going. He needs to trigger a flag to make sure that we can still review and know what's happening around. It feels like the compromise now is to do it in the consent agenda. So we can still see them as they come through for now, and then we can have a debate after we see what where the benchmark and trends are headed. I don't know how to say that motion, Lauren. You're probably better wording it, but or Tina, but I think what I'm motioning is to delegate to staff.
And Val, I'm not even sure you need a formal motion. I think you can direct staff that moving forward. This is where I'll rely on Tina for the type of variance request, but in temporary disturbance of buffer, staff is directed to put where the staff is still recommending approval of the permit to the consent agenda.
Like that, to add in kind.
In kind. See, that's where I need to rely on your minds. Yeah. But I see this as more of a procedure, kind of a governance for the board of how do you want to handle these requests. If I'll add in my 2 cents now. I think any variance request, my preference from a legal standpoint is that it's before the board, whether that's consent or not. But I would be interested to see what Nicole finds as far as staff approvals and things like that. But I think anytime you're approving something that's different from the letter of the rules, that would be good for the district to have coming from the managers.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Opinion heard.
So that's just a consensus of the.
Yeah, are y'all comfortable with us making that a direction to the staff?
Yes.
Thank you guys very much. Appreciate
Thank you.
it. All right, 5A, beautiful.
Regulatory monthly.
Okay. Lot of initial walkthroughs, a lot of projects still starting up. Number of trainings. But yeah, not a whole lot of, I wouldn't say interesting news, but not a lot of project specific wow stories to tell. Just busy.
I'm glad to see the number of inspections is, you know, quite high, large. And the number of violations seems like that's a manageable number, so.
Yeah, and we have had a lot of rain, intense rain, so that is good.
It also suggests that being more proactive with some of the walkthroughs and communication with projects.
Yeah.
That we can avoid many of those violations, so.
I will say too, as a preview for next month, we've been working on formalizing and updating our internal process for site enforcement at the direction of you all regarding, you know, the heights and that site in Oakdale. So just really looking to formalize and have it writing our enforcement mechanisms, both for internal use and to communicate to applicants. So I'm gonna include that in the August board packet for your information, and we're gonna kind of use it as an adaptive document and see how it works and then change it if needed, but want to increase the consistency of how we're approaching these issues. So
Thank you. Let's move on to item 6A. Instead of the applications, we're going to cover 26, 27.
Do you have specific questions?
Yes. So on this particular application, so a couple of notes. I appreciate the interest in application for a stewardship grant for both native habitat as well as permeable pavers. The one thing I wanted to flag, or it came to mind as I was looking at this plan, is the location of the permeable pavers. And typically, it's my understanding that the primary benefit of using permeable pavers are to disconnect runoff from stormwater drains. So while this is an incredible design, I don't see that achievement of that particular goal that we would be able to support, or I would feel comfortable supporting for providing a stewardship grant for this particular project.
Sure. So they did adjust, so typically, yes, if this were like a horse driver's fleet taking more hardscape runoff, we would recommend funding 75%. But given that it is in the backyard and it's taking just minimal roof runoff and whatever fits it.
I don't even see it taking any roof runoff, quite frankly. I mean, it's under a pergola next to the pool. That's my read of this plan. So that's why I'm just a little. That's why this one, I flagged this particular project.
Do you know what the breakdown is between the cost of the
So I apologize, Ashley is on vacation today. So
pavers versus planting?
yeah, so the planting. So their total landscape project is 70,000. Plants is 16,000, and then the entire permeable paver is 28,000.
When you're approving the plants for these native habitats? Do you look through the actual plant list and say, no, we're not doing that one? There's quite a few that are not native on this plant.
Yeah, so we look for 75% to be native, and then the rest can be.
So you don't say we're just paying for that 75% as long as you're meeting that ratio?
Right,
Gotcha.
yes. We
Okay.
have yes, there are some in the past where it said, you know, these don't qualify, so we've taken that out.
Okay.
For sure, but yes, I can double check. We did have, Brian Olson over at, Ramsey Soil and Water double check all the plants, because he did not do the design for this one, but. he did
I
review
think
it.
it's a lovely choice of different grasses, little blue stem, the prairie drop seed, some of the sedges, but yeah, my primary issue is with the pavement.
Mhm. Yeah, it definitely is minimal. I don't have we didn't need it or anything on this one yet.
Do we know if that is topographically fairly flat? Or if it sheds to one direction or another?
Yeah,
Most pool decks shed away from the pool.
Okay.
yeah,
Typically they crown away. So it would go primarily to like that screening planting that they've got along the edge.
To the west and or south.
It is not clear in the plan that their downspouts are directed. But. I mean, that
yeah,
would be-
yeah, just briefly mentioned in their application.
Well,
That
yeah.
rough drainage.
Yeah, I think Stephanie's point that it's being under the pergola, and the pergola is, we don't have a lot of information there, if that's like a slatted roof, or if that is covered. Yeah, you know, after vegetated, is it gonna be more or less covered?
Yeah, I can double check on that. I don't think it's a full, I think it's like our pergola with the slots, not a full cover. But yeah, it's not specifically covered out there.
Can we table and ask for more information to come back at another meeting, or is that not?
Yes, I'm just looking at their schedule, so they're proposing work to begin early August. So if our board meeting is in, that works, yeah.
Yeah,
Some more specifics on
The
that.
alternative
Yeah.
would be if you wanted to approve the native planting money, which would be like 50% of their.
Yeah, yeah.
And then if they'd like to come back.
So at least give them a little guidance on that piece.
I like that approach.
I would be okay with that.
You said that was 12 something, so it'd be 6.
Yes. Plant design, 16,000. Yeah, I'd have to look, yeah, don't quote me on all those stuff. Here. Eight plants.
You could approve 50% of the native plants eligible, or the eligible plants. And verify that number, and then come back with you with more information on the forest.
So then can I get a motion to approve 27 amended to only approve the native plant? The grant 26-27.
So moved.
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. All abstained say abstain. Okay, approved plan. And y'all come back whenever we decide in terms of. just be completely honest. I don't know what the intention is, so if they get back with that, that'd be. Okay, moving on to 6B, or forgive me, the budget, and then, yeah, 6B.
No. Major items to report here, of the applications coming through. More, staff approvals happening. Still on track with our budget, and plenty of projects in the design queue and site visit queue.
Every other public art ones, do we have a sense when those are gonna be done?
The Shoreview, so there's the Shoreview Tunnel mural, there's still
Oh, I got you.
renderings from artists, but I believe they want to be done this fall. And then the Maplewood signage, I think, kind of the same time.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking how nice it would be during a fall tour to maybe go see.
Yeah, yeah,
And is that Maplewood signage for the nature center?
yes, yeah.
Still nothing on the chloride projects, then we'll talk about that separately at a later time. Are we gonna see something this year, is my question on that.
Yeah, I hope so. We put it out there, you know, it was at our Public Works Forum. I need to check with Ashley, so that went out to our, public partners, and then she was gonna do a targeted outreach to, like Maplewood Mall, the Target stores, places like that, so. I'll double check with her, she wanted to make sure that the cities weren't going to jump on, so make sure that gets out.
No,
See
that's
what we can do, yeah.
wonderful. Okay, moving to item number 7, none, easy. Let's jump to number 8, or an attorney report.
I don't have anything for you either. So if you have anything for me, yeah, I don't have anything.
No, we appreciate putting you to work earlier, so thank you. If you don't mind, thank you, Lauren. We'll jump to 9, 4 discussion topics. I did just want to highlight this as a question I had reviewing. I'm glad that Mark brought up the comment about the temporary disturbance. I think we took the right, or directed the right approach there. The other one I was curious about is that we've set financial limits, if I recall correctly, for elevation of certain things, grants specifically, to where it is staff allowed versus not staff allowed. Oh,
Yeah, for stewardship grants, yeah, it's 5,000.
Right. So I started thinking through, we set that limit, you remember how many years ago? Totally.
It's been a while,
It's been
yeah.
probably from 10, at least 10 years.
Yeah,
We've been, on a personal note, been searching for a couple of different quotes in terms of like material costs and what it takes to do things. I was just curious if we should up that limit at some point in time, just considering the cost of doing these types of work. The increase, I haven't seen it fall down at all. Just a thought exercise. I think 5,000 is a reasonable limit. Do we, or should we consider elevating it? Is the question I had, just as a discussion topic.
We can have Ashley maybe do a breakdown for you of, what,
How they've gone over time.
and what the.
How many you've approved in the past 2 years?
yeah.
Yeah.
Under 5. and
Under
then
5
what
versus
10,
what we see.
What's between 5 and 10.
It seems like it'd be worthwhile just at least looking at it again, just thinking in terms of efficiency. We're not really keeping up with the cost of things, so put it that way. I've gone out and done different construction projects in my own local area. So it just some thoughts. I don't think I'd love to see a report in the future. Maybe this is an action item thing where we talk about some of these limits that we've set, trying to be efficient and effective with the fiscal dollars that we get. Maybe we make no change, which is great. But maybe there's an opportunity to do things.
Sure.
The other topic that I just wanted to double down on, I think I assume most of y'all have already either alerted to being part of the summer tour or not. I think there was a call out or an email that came out just a couple weeks ago, just to make sure if you haven't, please follow up. That'd be great. That's the only thing, just awareness.
Yeah, I think Emily asked for it by the 15th.
Yeah, coming up, I couldn't remember the date.
I
Thank
know
you.
a couple of you have emailed already. So that's good. It's helpful if you just let us know either way. And then in kind of in that same vein, an email just came out or went out today from Jan about the resolutions
Yeah.
meeting, it's an online meeting. But I plan to have that on the agenda for July. Or I'm sorry, July 12th, potentially.
Potentially July 29th.
The August meeting, whenever that may be, is I'll have that on the agenda for discussion and for delegate selection.
Okay, any other discussion topics just to bring up? Item 10A. Well,
So this will be a two-parter. We're going to do just a brief update. I think the last time I presented to you all, it was April or May of last year. So just a quick update outside of seeing our regular board reports of what we've been up to. And then I'll go a little in depth in terms of those shoreline property owner surveys, what we found, and information. So the last year or so, we have been adding a lot of new projects. So by shifting some responsibilities and some individual roles within our team, we've built some capacity, and that has allowed us to do more work. So you're all very familiar with what's going on with the management plan public engagement. So we were able to do some in-depth engagement, both with our contractor work, but also with staff, especially with the pop-up input gathering opportunities. We added Watershed Week last year. So that was 4 events. We only had one of them get rained out. It was successful enough that we're doing it again this year. We did the 50th anniversary party. We launched the Outreach and Engagement Volunteer Program pilot that went very well. And those volunteers were instrumental in supporting the launch of the Get Gritty campaign, which also went quite well. It was our first experience with using YouTube ad capabilities. So that was a good experience and experiment for us. And also doing regional communication partnerships with some of we did spring workshop. So we did turf alternatives and maintenance workshop. We ended up doing online workshops again this year because those also went well. And then we supported some other new programs. So we worked very closely with the projects and grants team. So we support the Water Wise Garden Mentor and the Partner Grant program in terms of that selection. The Partner Grant in particular helps us strengthen engagement relationships. So just a quick snapshot of that. And then talking about the impact of our respective programs. So I can't emphasize enough how much our education team does with the staffing hours that they have. So they reached over 1,700 students, and that's individual students, not repeat. Those are unique students. 13 schools, and we had 160 class sessions in the past school year. They are really committed to also customizing those lesson plans for not only the classroom needs, but for the site, so that we have place-based education. We're also expanding beyond kind of our K-12 programming. We're starting a partnership with Carpenter Nature Center, who's going to be delivering some programming at the middle school in 2027. Woodbury Middle School, we're working with Metro State and their social work program. So they're going to be doing a custom tour of some of their sites, including Roosevelt Homes, just talking about the intersection between well-being and environmental factors. So we're really excited for that, to start that programming. And we've started talking about, again, in 2027, doing a partnership with District 622 in terms of community education programming. So starting to expand beyond kind of the 4th and 5th grade programming we typically do and do well. Engagement. We're up to 19 tabling events in the past year. We're on track to do pretty similar this year. Some of those we create ourselves, and some of those we go to. So we try to hit almost every city every year in terms of one tabling event or another, whether it's a community celebration or a farmer's market. We started 3 new interactive activities. Those are educational activities that we use while tabling. And we have yet another one, number 4, that we launched at Waterfest this year, which talks about the dynamics of a healthy lake. And we're starting to perfect that and make that a permanent addition to our suite of activities. And MREP work. So we've been working with them closely in terms of reaching the Battle Creek Lake sub-watershed area. So they received a neighborhood grant, and they've been doing some intensive outreach to try to get pollinator plantings and other BMPs in that neighborhood. They will be doing a pop-up kind of ice cream social event on July 7th that we're supporting. So we're continuing to work actively with East Metro Water Resource Education Program.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Yeah.
So on the 19 tabling events, with some of the engagement last year, the board had the opportunity to go and participate in some of those. Is there ways, as we look forward, prioritize community engagement where the board might be made aware of some of those tabling events prior to them happening, so we could like at least come out and support whomever's staffing the table or even staff the table themselves? Is that a possibility?
Yes, and thank you for asking. So what I can do is we have a sign up genius that we created for the CAC this year that just has all of our engagement opportunities listed out. So they're not getting email after email. I can send that to you all as well. So that has all of our tabling events that we know of so far, and also our community engagement events where we need extra support. So Watershed Week is on there, the Owasso Wabasso event we just had yesterday. And that might be easy for you all to just put your name down and we can make sure to contact you with all that information.
And I don't want to speak for the rest of the board, but I figured there might be opportunities, maybe synergy, like time points we will. I assume y'all are going to Market Fest for White Bear Lake would be my assumption. So, I'm there every Thursday. So like the synergy for me. I'd love that. Y'all okay with receiving yet another email on those events?
Nice too when there's events in your area too that, you know, your neighbors and make sure that they get there.
Yeah, quite honestly, if you had it, there's lake associations where if you wanted, you can get more, like the Wabasso I heard is great. That's good. There's other ones nearby that I think might be good.
Absolutely. So moving on to communications, 100 followers we added to Facebook, 83 to Instagram, 151 to LinkedIn. And, you know, if you're looking at somebody who has 1 million followers, that might seem like a drop in the bucket. But just a reminder that all except for one watershed district has under 2,000 followers on all the channels. So this is some real guts for us in terms of followers. So we're looking at quantity and quality with most, right? We want to make sure that we have the numbers, they're in the right spot. As much as we love Minneapolis, we don't really need them following our Facebook page. So we keep close track on where people are as much as we can in terms of the individual cities. And just a mix of posting. So LinkedIn is really important for us to keep in contact with our partner networks. And that's just growing in terms of just a general social network. And then we have 46 subscribers to YouTube. So YouTube is actually the most used social media platform that we have. And the participation across age, race, gender is pretty consistent. So that's something that we're really zeroing in on, something that we want to dig further into in terms of that capability to reach people.
Do you have a sense on percentage-wise the increase over 24? Because these are reference to.
That's a really good question. I mean, with Facebook, that's somewhere between 16 and 20% increase. LinkedIn is definitely more. I mean, that's probably about a 30% increase from where we were. Some of them, it's just easier to move the needle than others. Facebook, we've been engaged. That was our primary social media platform for quite some time. And we've really dug into utilizing Facebook and LinkedIn in the last couple of years, and particularly in terms of short videos. We really noticed that there's a higher level of engagement with short videos and that we tend to get new people. Whereas if we have, just your basic photo feed, we tend to get, kind of our choir. So I tend to recognize more names when we do those kind of posts. So we try to do a mix. We want to continue, engaging our champions, but also reaching new people.
Well, do you have a sense in your mind if there's like what we would lovingly call a key performance indicator or target that you shoot for in terms of percentage increase? Like, are these meeting your expectations or are these exceeding? You kind of alluded to they're exceeding.
Yeah.
Kind of curious.
Yeah, especially I think in terms of Instagram and LinkedIn, it's exceeding. I think we can look at Facebook again and see, how we can make more gains in that area. Yeah, if you're talking about KPIs, I think we'd have to look year over year a little bit further and just figure out, how much we can gain reasonably and get that depth of engagement as well. I mean, I'm happy now, but I know that as we go on, these kind of games might get a little bit harder. So being able to do a little bit more strategy would be helpful. And we've started to talk about ways that we can be a little more intentional about serializing content to kind of get it away from something that feels like a commercial and more something that looks like a video. And that's what we follow a lot of, think pieces and thought leaders in social media and government communications, and try to pick out things that we think will possibly work for us, and serialized content is one of those things.
I really like this because the reason I'm stressing figuring out if we need to put metrics associated to it is this is a great outreach mechanism. It just is, I think, showing a lot of return, or at least anecdotally from what I have. I think quantitatively you're kind of starting to show it. We're getting ready for this big refresh of the plan. We just talked about wanting to impact quality of life. It seems like having some more understanding of where we're going to target for this might actually be beneficial both to the plan and what we're trying to accomplish. That's my 2 cents on why I'm talking about.
No, I absolutely agree. And one of the things that we're looking at now, I think a few years ago, I really stressed this, but kind of getting people along the pathway of somebody who's a new audience to somebody who's never heard of watershed districts before to somebody who's a champion. And social media is probably in the beginning of that experience. Really, it's pretty time bound, temporary. Getting the information, it's easiest to engage new people, but they're not going to revisit the content, right? The same thing with newsletter. So that's one of the things that I have reinvigorate the website. I'm not talking about a redesign. I'm talking about utilizing that more intentionally as a communications tool. And one of the ways we want to do that is encourage people to get to the website and make it user-friendly enough that people are revisiting that and engaging more with, who we are as an organization. And then hopefully also, maybe at the same time, some of these can be current, getting them engaged in events and getting them to meetings. So that, we get to the point where, hey, maybe they're interested in joining the CAC, and eventually, maybe they become a board member. Val, you're kind of the model. As somebody who like started not knowing, you told the story at of, like not knowing a lot of what we do and maybe not being necessarily happy with it, to being somebody who's now the board president, right? So, I mean, do we expect everybody to go that full journey? No. But getting people as far along that journey as we possibly can. And some of that, we're trying to get as objective as we can in terms of measuring these things. So, not to jump ahead here, but one of the things that, the third bullet point down in the second section, more baseline and ongoing evaluation is part of that. So tracking things like the number of visitors that we have to the booth and doing that cumulatively and looking at it year over year, the number of volunteers we're engaging in volunteer hours. And that also, I think, speaks to how we are excellent stewards of the funds, right? Number of students we're reaching, those unique student numbers, and making sure that we're telling those stories, and also, the depth of engagement. So some of this is a numbers game, but we don't want to lose that. We also want to do meaningful engagement. We want, people to be the depth of engagement, not only just getting numbers in.
If I remember correctly, last year at Waterfest, one of the concerns was, it's a huge event. A lot of people come, but the concern was people don't recognize that it's put on by the watershed district. There wasn't that recognition, and I know that you put something in place to kind of gauge that, to see if maybe if there's a before and after. And I don't remember seeing those numbers. I was just wondering if you had found anything.
Yeah, we skipped the evaluation survey this year, and the reason we did that is because we were anticipating construction. So we're going to do basically the exact same survey that we did in 2025 in 2027 and look at those numbers. So I think what you're referring to, I want to say it was between 60 and 70% of people recognize that Ramsey-Washington was the host of that event. Of course, we'd love it to be more like 80 or 90%. So
and
looking
then there was another factor too, wasn't there? Not just the name recognition, but also like what is a watershed?
So that's separate from the Waterfest survey. That was our community survey that we delivered via text in early 2024. And one thing I want to budget for 2027 around the same time, around February, is to do that same survey again and see if we've moved the needle at all. There is definitely a difference in terms of the individual sub-watersheds in that recognition. So the sub-watershed that includes Lake Phelan and kind of the surrounding community was one of the highest. And I do attribute that to Waterfest. That there's a higher amount of understanding, not only of just name recognition, but also understanding what a watershed district does. We do not see that same recognition in like the Battle Creek area necessarily, or portions of Shoreview. You could factor in that areas of Shoreview are relatively new for us. Last section that we added to the watershed district. But there's likely different factors there as well. How much time are we spending in the schools? How much time are we spending in visual events in that area? So one of the things that we tried to do, especially with the management plan, is intentionally go into those areas. And that's something that we're trying to do right now as well, is really hit the ones where there was especially low recognition. And we also recognize that it's not demographically the same. So younger folks, especially people who rent, are likely to have less understanding of, the watershed districts and name recognition of Ramsey-Washington in particular. Those two surveys will be repeated in 2027, and we'll see if we made progress. If that's something that we can view on those individual surveys, or if there's really more work to be done. So yeah, I talked about more tracking, more baseline and ongoing evaluation. Internally, we're also trying to coordinate as intentionally as we can. So we have something that's called the engagement guide. So we sat down with the program manager, the individual programs that are most likely, that interact with the general public most often. So the projects team, natural resources, water quality, and talked about individual audiences in terms of their individual experiences with the projects, what they hear in terms of pain points, and tried to figure out when and who, and use that as an internal guideline for our communications and engagement. Again, be as intentional and strategic as we possibly can in terms of engaging people when it's going to be most impactful. So an example would be, if it's a shoreline property, like a lake association, and we're talking about individual water quality measures, we're going to apply a certain project, a alum application. When would we engage the lake association, and the method of doing that, and being able to track that over time, so that we can get more and more effective at that process. So that's an internal guideline that we're using. The communications and engagement plan, that's going to be kind of ancillary piece to the management plan. That's something that we've been walking through in strategic planning meetings within the department right now, and then within our overall team. Of course, every department is an internal stakeholder for us, so making sure that we're getting it right with them, and then that will be delivered as part of the draft plan. So you all will look at that and again tell us, are we getting it right in terms of three pieces? Your traditional communications engagement will be things like events, working with volunteers, making sure that we're not only conveying information and being transparent and accountable to the public, but also listening, and listening intentionally. So those are all pieces of the communication and engagement plan. And then of course our education. So we sat down with our school-based team and talked about what's working really well, what they would like to grow, and what they would like to do away with, and and how we can evaluate that effectively. So we're trying to do that with each piece of our program, so that we can leverage the resources and the capacity that we currently have.
And looking at the education programs, do we partner with Blamo at all, or management organizations associated for school-based education?
We do not for school-based. In some ways, we're a little unique. So some of our surrounding watershed districts will offer resources to teachers, but they won't necessarily go into the classroom themselves very often. So I think an example would be in Riley Purgatory Bluff, they do STEM on Tap, which has been successful in their program. So they have happy hours type sessions where they sit down with educators and talk about how to integrate this into their curriculum, but they don't necessarily deliver individual curriculum quite this way or this extensively or with this kind of suite of lesson plans. We're also uniquely benefiting from the standing relationships with teachers. So it can be difficult to get into a school. Teachers have a lot on their plate, and they have standing curriculum, and adding something to that can be a challenge.
We can also table it. I know a few
Yeah.
different school teachers that are more covered by the Blamo space. It's just out of curiosity, but it sounds like you're doing the right partnership. 622 makes me curious about 624 that's shared between White Bear Lake and Blamo.
Yeah.
And I've poked around, and there hasn't been we offer something very, very, very unique. That's kind of my big takeaway, and so I was curious about it.
Yeah.
It's not an action, not anything like that. I was just trying to understand.
Yeah, get a feel for it. And off the top of my head, I don't try to think of if we are currently in any of the schools in the White Bear Lake School District.
Just for my internal poking, not yet.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's great to work with both the teams from, we've worked with Rice Creek, Capital Region, and Alamo in terms of outreach and engagement activities. I think, anytime that we can pool our resources, steal from each other in terms of ideas, everybody wins. So, especially in terms of leveraging our current capacity, right? So yeah, definitely.
Just curious.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, so I talked about reinvigorating the website. We're continuing to replace the signage, so we're just waiting for things to get fabricated for the lake signs. The next step is to do the Maplewood Mall sign refresh and also the Jarvis Mill. So hoping to get some progress done on that in this fiscal year. And then continuing down the list in terms of what looks the gnarliest in terms of the condition of those individual signs. And then we'll talk about, strategic engagement around lake health when we talk about the survey. And then I just wanted to show you all what we're doing in terms of the So we spent quite some time looking at different platforms. So one of the challenges we've noticed, and it's something the analytics of our website supports, is anytime that we have a PDF document on the website, the list that it's interacted with. So any reports, any individual plans, anything that's in that library, the library itself is actually accessed quite frequently. We definitely know that the documents in the permitting program are the exception there. Those are accessed frequently, but everything else, it's not. And so, especially when it comes to our last management plan and the strategic overview, those are some of the top of the list in terms of what's accessed, but it may not be the most user-friendly or accessible. And so we looked at, number one, how can we make something interactive and user and public friendly for the comment period? And how can we report on what we're doing with this next management plan in a way that's a little more dynamic and interacts with the other areas of our website and the other areas, in our ongoing work in a meaningful way. So we have two solutions basically that we narrowed it down to and are looking and we're going to move forward with. The first one is Conveo. So you can see a little example on the right here of what some of the capabilities it has. So you can basically put the draft plan on there. It has a guided tour for individual users, and they can basically drop a pin anywhere in that plan and make a comment on anything. And it does have AI capabilities in it, so it does track common used phrases and sentiment tracking, things like that. And it also has search capabilities. So somebody can search a common term or an individual lake, will automatically pull up every single instance in the plan that is mentioned. It also has video capabilities. It has interactive glossary capabilities. So when somebody's looking at the plan and they're saying, there's a lot of instances of them mentioning BMP, what does that mean? Or internal loading. They can just hover over that term and find out what that means. And it also gives us the capability to cross-link when this plan is done. So we can cross-link to individual project pages, we can cross-link to other plans, and we can create a plan library that will interact. We can, cross-link those as well. So if we have, a general implementation item that is mentioned, and then it has a related action plan, we can cross-link into that individual action plan. It also has community mapping capabilities. So this is It can sync to ArcGIS online. And, similar to the map-based survey that we did, we can do this with various plans and various input gathering. And it also has the capability of doing hybrid workshops and open houses. So, if people are doing dot voting or mapping or sticky note comments within an interactive open house, it's automatically uploaded into the system. We can use that to track.
So is this the plan to use in 60-day comment period?
Yes.
And how, it looks like a great platform. How do we get people connected to actually use it?
Yeah, so people can either, they can create a individual kind of user account if they would like.
No, I understand that,
How are we
so
gonna
we
reach
have,
people?
how do you
No.
reach people? Because we have an issue, obviously, with, bridging that gap.
Right. In terms of what we can do, I think the best thing is the best time to engage people is when you don't need to. So all of the work that we've done building up, as soon as we know that this is going to be available, we do have some names and information that we've collected throughout the management plan engagement process, including everybody who has participated in the focus groups through ZAN. So what we can do, thankfully, is we can send a message out to them and say, here's the newest update for the management plan process, and encourage them to interact with this. I think the other way would be, when we're looking at some of the events that we're doing, particularly in August when we have National Night Out and some of the other opportunities, as we start having intentional conversations with people and advertising this as a possibility. And that's something that we're starting to do even now is just let people know this is about the time that we're going to be doing the public comment period. This is why this is meaningful, and hopefully engage people that way. So, it's going to be, I think we're going to have to do extra effort. And that's, I think, what we found time and time again with this, especially with some of those audiences that not only we don't see in terms of our watershed district work, but maybe do not feel welcome in terms of government meetings or city council meetings, maybe, groups that you don't see on a regular basis. So, doing more in person engagement has been the most successful, and being able to reach out to individual community partners has also been successful. So, for example, the partner grant recipients that we have initially, or other organizations that we've worked with through the ZAN process in the past, will also receive a notification.
There's probably a small subset of people that are interested in reading through a plan like this.
Yes.
But if we can break it out, maybe there's certain parts of it that we target to certain audiences to say, you don't have to look at all 300, whatever pages, 100 pages is or whatever, but here, look at this part, and there's that video capability too, so we can kind of walk them through that potentially too. That would be
The other half is after we finalize the management plan, how are we going to report out what we're doing? And how are we going to do that in a way that's user-friendly, that's mobile optimized? Roughly half of the people who access our website are doing so on their mobile devices. If we don't have something that looks good on a mobile device, are they going to bother going to their laptop? Unlikely. So this is kind of showing you some capabilities of this other solution that we found. So this is an example of a county that used this for economic recovery dashboard after COVID. But it shows you some of the progress bars that we can use in terms of individual status, so that obviously it will not be closed versus open for us, but it might be, this project is in progress, this project is completed, it's in maintenance phase, this one has been discontinued, whatever status makes sense. And then individual tabs can be things like goal areas, individual programs, whatever is easiest for the public to digest, basically, in terms of these individual action items. And they all are interactive. So one of the challenges, of course, with data visualization is if you have, the x-axis and the y-axis, they're over here, can you really figure out what this dot means? So this does have that capability. And there's different options that we have here. It's pretty easy to use out of the box. It's a lot of drag and drop widgets. So that's the other thing that we're looking at is, what's going to be the ease of use for staff and making sure that we're not creating a lot of excess work in the reporting process. And that, this is a reasonable price. So this is basically the best mix that we found in terms of those different factors. And we can do things like stoplight progress too, in terms of, looking at individual action items or implementation items in terms of, this is on track, or this is a little delayed, or, we're this percent through our individual items here. It really depends on the individual program. So some of them are going to, lend easily to doing individual charts, and some of them may not. So having that flexibility is going to be really important for us. So we'll be sitting down with each individual program and kind of talking through what this might look like before we launch it in spring.
So speaks to Val, what you were saying earlier about
outreach.
what have we completed in the plan, when our 10-year plan, this would kind of keep track along the way the next 10 years and how we're doing.
But it's not clear to me, Tina, is this going to also replace some of the work that we've done with the program summaries and some of the bar maps that we currently have? Is this going to be both an internal and external tool? Or is it just primarily external?
Yes.
This one is mostly external. So we did look at ones that had internal project management and even performance management capabilities. And to be candid, it would have taken a lot of staff time.
Yeah, I'm very comfortable with the mechanisms we have today. I don't want to see those changed. I just was kind of, the way you were describing it got my gears turning that way.
I mean, I think it's mostly external. Internal, use it kind of big picture wise for you all to see how we're coming along. But the tools that we already have in place that are mostly related to project related, that's not replacing.
You had said a couple of words there that made me curious.
And we were looking at the balance of it as well when we were going through this process and looking at different solutions of, does it make sense for an organization and staff of the size? Some of the solutions, quite frankly, were the difference in price was considerable, and the setup. So we would have needed a lot of external support to be able to set up the solution, and we would have needed multiple user accounts for individual program managers. Didn't seem like something that would be a value add for us internally to be able to do things more efficiently. It might even send us direction. If we were a larger organization, like there are municipalities that use those same solutions and have really found value in them. But that was, I think, what we thought for now, anyway.
So thinking back to all the engagement events that we've had with maybe HOAs, like associations, etc., we probably have a Rolodex of folks within the watershed district who represent larger bodies of populations or larger bodies or collections of people. Would we communicate some sort of link to this in part of that 60-day, or we just do the typical public notice mechanism?
No, that's the outreach that Lauren was talking about. That we'll
So it is all the ones that have reached out over time. We're going to
So there's
actively send out. I heard a newsletter. I heard we're going to send it to some folks. We have certain followers. I didn't know if it was precluded to just that or these
the
other
people that
folks.
we've been engaged with over the last several years is specifically around the plantation process.
Perfect. I just wanted to double check.
So we'll use it for that. We'll also use it for the TAC. You all can use it too, so it can be multi.
Happy. I'm happy.
One thing I didn't mention with Conveyor, which is the input gathering process, is we can also create different views or access levels. So if we had a future plan needed a TAC, And they were looking at a different level of input gathering for that versus the general public. We can also create those different views and have them password protected. So we're also able to do that. And then it's gathered all in one place for us.
Just in the interest of time, Lauren, I know you have that whole survey and there's some individual slides for each of them. Is there a key takeaway you want us to have on those survey results?
Yeah, let me just blaze through that real quick. Not advancing for me. Hang on. Let me just scroll down.
Because I can pull it up. I have a
Okay.
packet here.
I'm just gonna try it again. Yeah. That's the thing with inviting me to talk. Don't threaten me with a good time. I will talk forever. Okay. So this is a quick breakdown of the participation level that we had, and you can see some of this is a little deceptive because there's a lot of people who live on Owasso. So I did look individually in terms of some of these lakes and whether or not it was a representative percentage of people that responded for an individual lake. So Jarvis, clearly the answer is no. Carver, it's more because we have fewer numbers that live directly on Carver Lake. And there is one that was separated out, which is Casey Lake. So we did something a little different with Casey Lake. That we spread the net a little bit wider for that one. So we not only did the shoreline property owners for that one, we went about 4 or 5 blocks out. And that was basically because we've been having meetings with Casey Lake neighbors and engaging with them on a regular basis in terms of some of these questions. And we just wanted to get a little more in-depth information and see if there was any difference there. So most of the people lived on the lake in this individual sample. This is how they utilized the lake. So we did have some kind of other categories that went into this. So things like kayaking. Some people were very specific about the type of boating they were doing. Or water skiing. We got water skiing. So some of our lakes, people really enjoy specific types of recreation, walking around the lake. They wanted to be very specific about, I'm not just looking at the lake, I'm walking around it. So variety there. This is Casey Lake. So there's a real difference in terms of what how they're viewing the lake in terms of its utility. And I think that does play out in terms of some of the other answers. So this is where we're kind of curious. So the people that we tend to hear from most, it's I think like what you would say with utilities or your sewer system or what have you, is people don't really think about it on an ongoing basis unless there's something that they're saying is off or doesn't feel comfortable for them. And so we were wondering if it was going to skew more towards the unhealthy, and what we found actually is it's pretty split. So we're seeing a real balance of people who view their lake as healthy. We're also seeing kind of the same split in terms of how people view aquatic plants, and what they view as a healthy lake. So this again is Casey, and you can see that this skews more negatively. I will say percentage wise, in terms of overall response, it was lower with Casey. So this is less representative overall of the people that we surveyed for that individual one, whereas with the multi-lake one, we hit a pretty good sweet spot in terms of statistical significance for that one. Characteristics that you believe define a healthy lake. So you'll notice that a lot of people were very intentional wildlife as an indicator when they wrote something in. And that's something that I think, not just fish, right? But they were looking at other wildlife here. Diverse aquatic plants is low, but you still see 70% of people responded that that's an indicator for them.
We have a sense of, I had a question on this. How many of the lakes actually have milfoil are the ones surveyed? You know?
Off the top of my head.
It's
How many
okay
of
if
these
you
have
don't.
milfoil? I don't know off the top of
Oh.
my head. I don't,
I mean, over 30% of folks had one of them answers. I don't know how much of it is basic species versus, animal variation, flora versus fauna. I don't get that sense, but
Right.
it caught me where I don't have a good sense that we have a ton of milfoil, but I don't.
no, but all it would take is one person to say no
Fair.
milfoil,
That's fair.
Right, and when we go down in the survey, you'll see we intentionally asked about native plants. And what they thought about those and any visible aquatic plants. And there's a little bit of a difference in terms of the response there. And that's one of the things that we wanted to look like, how much of this is just a general aesthetic idea of what a lake should look like. And how much of this might be, just invasive species concerns. And we also wanted to look at this, which is, who do they view as having biggest impact, the biggest role in stewarding a healthy lake? And so for this one, remember it's majority shoreline property owners. The number one was lake visitors. Number two was city or county staff. Three, water, and then watershed districts towards the bottom, and then the bottom being shoreline property owners. You look at Casey Lake, it's very similar. But you kind of swap in terms of, shoreline property owners are higher up, and, we did have more of a mix in terms of people who live directly on the lake and people who are in the community for this one. It was about 50-50. So it's interesting to look at these two surveys in these similar questions and see, what they think. And water clarity is important, we agree with that. And then presence of native aquatic plants. And we wanted to be very specific about examples, just in case people wanted to look this up. So it had cross links in the original survey. And you can see, it's actually weighted fairly positively in terms of people's responses. Here's the individual, look at a table and kind of get that sense. And here's that question that I was talking about is how acceptable do you find any aquatic plants? And this was consistent across those two survey groups as well, that people were firmly in the middle. They're like, it's fine, not my favorite, but I'll accept it.
With respect to the aquatic plant questions, was there any trend, which you presented to us, we could tell, in the lake that the individuals were associated with?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so it does vary by lake for sure.
Yeah.
Owasso tended to trend a little bit more positively, versus another lake where, some of it's not a surprise. If we tended to hear more complaints about aquatic plants in an individual area, we tended to see a little bit more negative results, but not completely.
probably from lakes that are shallow lakes.
Yes.
Right.
But yeah, like Phelan, for example, we didn't tend to see a lot of negative responses in terms of people seem to be a little more open to aquatic plants. Are there visible aquatic plants on Phelan? Yeah. But maybe not as much as there was in like the early 2000s. So yeah, there definitely is that difference in the proportion.
Is there any correlation between lake owners or non-lake owners and their view of aquatic plants?
That's a really good question. I'd have to drill down a little bit more into that. In terms of the Casey survey, there didn't seem to be a remarkable difference in terms of that. I would also be curious if, we looked at the initial response of how they utilize the lake. If they're more likely to look at the aesthetics, are they more or less likely to accept visible aquatic plants? That's another question.
Is this issue similar to what Bill Pardoe was addressing well before he left about shallow lakes versus the deep lake that everyone in Minnesota hopes to be doing next to?
Yes, very much related.
Yeah, especially when you look at the Casey Lake situation. Casey Lake is actually a wetland. It's not a lake. And it's very shallow and it has a very large public park around it. So that's part of it too. Like that's one of the reasons we sent it out to more of the neighborhood, because even if they don't live on Casey, they, spend time in the park, so. But that is one of the issues with Casey, is that it's very shallow and it has a lot of aquatic plants. And they want it to be open water.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how we address this one. I mean, this is public perception, right? And I don't know if it's similar to kind of a great opportunity for signage to say, this is a wetland, not a lake, or not that. I mean, the only people you would reach are the people who actually stop and read the sign, but. Yeah, this is a great kind of confirmation years later that nothing has really shifted.
I will say I was pleasantly surprised at the perceptions of property owners around Salem. And I do wonder if that is an impact of the shoreline restoration project or Waterfest. It's hard to tell.
There's no motorized boats on Phelan, right? That's correct. Yeah. So slightly different.
Yeah, the use is different, and they actually aren't.
They're not
shore
immediately
owners.
on-
They're
across the street.
adjacent to
Yeah.
it. It's also, if you look at the type of community that like the community around Phelan is a little different minded, perhaps, than others.
So commonly, we don't hear people refer to aquatic plants as aquatic plants. There's one word they use, and it's weeds. And I think, and that's one thing that we've been looking at is, we've tried the information campaign. We've tried kind of we're going to do shallow lakes video. We're going to deliver it everywhere we can. It's going to be as comprehensive as possible. It's going to have visual aids. We're going to have individual shoreline property owners interviewed in the video. But we have the information available in that aspect. Trickier is handling emotional context, with the ick factor, in terms of how people feel physically when they look at aquatic plants, or when they encounter them when they're swimming, or, weeds, the fact that, it's almost every single person. And I will say, even internally, we slip and we say weeds. And just what we've heard in terms of, there's definitely a recreation aesthetic aspect of this, and we are water quality people. So finding a bridge in terms of the values that we're espousing, and sometimes, it's also looking at who's saying it, in addition to what's being said.
There's also an issue of density too.
Mm-hmm.
For instance, we had the gentleman talk about the water. Yeah, quantity is a big issue.
Kind of in that thing, this might be a little bit too into the weeds, or I'm curious if there's been any effort, or is there maybe an opportunity to kind of nuance the whole plant question, submergent versus floating versus the shoreline emergence, kind of just get a different sense of where people might be at, or is that probably too technical?
I mean, I think we know what they're getting at when they're concerned about it.
Well, I'm wondering if the people that are boating are more concerned with the submergence. The people that are aesthetically walking and seeing all the water, though they can't see water, it's kind of user perception based. That's what I'm trying to drill down a little bit into.
Yeah.
Where it is.
So here's the operating theory that we're going to is, number one, now we know, right, in terms of we have data that not everybody is in the plants are, weeds, aquatic plants are bad category, right? So, this isn't all bad news. The perspectives are more varied than we expected. And that's why surveys like this are so important, right? So now we have kind of a foothold in terms of having these conversations. And actually, we did start those conversations last night at the Owasso Wabasso event. So one of the things is looking at the areas where we had a lot of responses for this individual survey and planning events. And having an opportunity for staff from multiple departments to have kind of a low stakes, casual, friendly conversation with people in the area. So that's what we did last night. We went to, Owasso Park, and we had a soda bar, and we had buttons, and we had the shoreline tour, and we had about 34 people, all residents, primarily shorelines, but of the immediate area, come out and talk. And a lot of them stayed the entire time. A lot of them stayed after. And I was able to talk to somebody on Lake Association about, hey, would you be interested in starting a program where we partner with lake associations and talk about lake health and the diversity and also recognize people individually who are doing these practices. And he said, yeah, we'd absolutely love to do that. I gave him my card, and we're going to stay in contact. So that's one of the things. And when I'm talking about who's saying it, we always know that there's an authenticity problem when you have a paid member of staff versus a neighbor that you've known for 20 years. And that's just, it's an iceberg in terms of we are not only dealing with whatever history that individual has with the watershed district, whether that exists or not, but every interaction that they've had with local government, every feeling that they have in terms of their individual community, and who can I trust? So it's much easier for people just getting into psychology to trust somebody who is in the same situation, in the same boat as they are, right? And so that's when we're looking at Lake Steward program. There is a Minnesota Lakes and Rivers program that is very similar to this, that basically trains members of the Lake Association to go out and do assessments based on various criteria and name that individual lake steward, related training. And so we're looking at, not only talking about shorelines and the value of having a native plant shoreline, but also, just getting to the basics of diversity is good. We want species diversity. We want aquatic plant diversity. We want, this is any other ecosystem. And part of that is this aquatic plant campaign too. So getting people to not look at weeds as a broad category, but looking at individual plant species and value to individual wildlife that they already care about. So, if you're looking at duckweed, and
I think that sounds like an excellent plan, excellent foothold and really good. So I appreciate everything you've done.
Cool. And then, we want to make all of these iterative processes and do continuous improvement for this. So again, putting in evaluation measures, tracking things, and making sure that, we're not going to assume that we get it 100% right the first time, that we continue to make improvements year after year. Some of this, might be visible next year, like the Lake Steward program or other things. But we want to get it started now and build these programs so that we can start seeing some impact, and then hopefully do the same survey again, and fingers crossed see some progress.
I would just caution, I don't think we need to be looking for being in the job of changing perception, but just providing information seems appropriate in terms of what you're doing. It's hard to change perception, Casey Lake being one of those where it's not called out as a wetland, any kind of Zillow posting. So just that's it. I think educating is you have the right plan in place. I don't know if our goal is to be shifting perception, it should just be continuing education. I like that. Awesome, man. Thank you, Lauren. It's a lot of data. We had two very data dense topics to hit.
Great journey to be on.
On the if you don't mind, we're gonna jump to 10B. I assume that's why you're here, Brandon. Are we comfortable with just firing questions? If
Yeah,
there
this
are
is really
actual questions?
informational, and if you have questions anyway, so
Yeah.
that's fine, yeah.
My only question is, do we have any instances of currently using filters? As described here?
We do, in fact, the jellyfish is a filter that was it Oakdale? That came through here a couple
In a
months.
permitting
In a
project, not one of
in a
our
permitting
projects.
project, a couple months ago. We see the jellyfish has been a little bit more common as just the way that designers have selected recently within our district. We see a couple of them a year. Usually almost always they're in locations where infiltration is not an option, so it kicks them to the alternative compliance sequencing. Many times we see these instances where space is at a premium and they're in parking lots. It's one of the big benefits within our district for these BMPs is if they're going underground and they're going below a parking lot, storing water and filtering it through a BMP like this, if they need to replace a manhole or replace cartridges, that's a lot easier to do than if they put an underground infiltration or filtration below a parking lot. And if that fails, then you've got to tear up the parking lot. So there's a lot of advantages to these, and I think designers are seeing that when they work through the compliance sequencing process, and so we are starting to see some of these.
Recognizing that a lot of or all of citations and references kind of from the outside world in a sense. Are you aware of any kind of practitioners network within kind of greater metropolitan area that data will be gathered, various watershed districts, study on malls, whatever, to gain better experience with these?
Yeah, as you may have noticed, many of the references are within the last 5 to 10 years. That's where we've really started seeing the frequency of them take off. There are some watershed districts, particularly ones that have permitted some of these earlier on, had monitoring required as part of it. And really what those findings have demonstrated is what is in here, the pre-treatment and just the TSS loading to these in general are critical to how well they perform over time. And that paired with the owner's commitment to ongoing appropriate maintenance at regular intervals, which
is that easy to detect, that pressure differential? I mean, how do they know, other than periodically going down and checking, that the filter is spent or needs to be refurbished?
Yeah, it's opening up the manhole and looking, and the frequency at which those inspections need to occur is dictated based on the drainage area and the land use that's tributary to filter. So smaller drainage areas, you can go longer without inspecting.
So have you worked with folks who actually have gone down and checked these?
Well, our staff do, but that is one of the O&M considerations and I would say concerns that we have is I don't particularly know visually how to detect when a cartridge is spent. So you're really depending on the designer's estimated lifespan of the cartridge based on the site and or manufacturer's data. But I mean, we don't monitor.
What ends up happening with the membranes is they get plugged.
Yeah.
And then all of the proprietary devices have an internal overflow. So it's not like an on-off switch where you're like, yes, this is working or not working. The performance slows as the filter starts to plug, and then you start seeing the frequency of the internal overflow used. And so that's where the frequency is needed, because when you go and clean it out, it's not that the filter is good or not good, it's that it's losing capacity. So you go and you wash it, clean it out to restore that filtration capacity.
I didn't do a deep dive through some of the papers, but is there any kind of comparative assessments associated to other mechanisms for phosphorus reduction techniques?
Yeah, there are, and there are standard testing. So there's, it's the acronyms, but there's the one agency entity that does it out in Washington, another one that does it in New Jersey, and they run the same particle distribution through all of these BMPs and then record TSS removals.
Oh, I mean, I
So
see
there's a standardized way to compare all the filters to one another.
these complex filters seem to have received some level of credit from the NPCA, so it must be some level of effective.
Yep. Yeah, I think on the order here, you're looking at somewhere around 70 to 80% TSS removal for these generally. So they're pretty, if they're put into a watershed where the effluent discharge rate is within their specs.
Yeah, but it sounds like it would be really worthwhile to figure out, you know, at least to know visually, can you tell, or some other mechanism of measurement, how do you tell? Or how does Nicole's team know?
Yeah.
I mean, building on what Stephanie says, I figured if there was some sort of standard measure, they should have some idea of what, under these conditions, this is when the filtration.
Yeah, other
mechanism-
than time.
Right, that's kind of my gut feel, so I was curious if they. That's where I was heading with the question. Okay.
And there's like a recommended frequency for cleaning that's in, you know, the site's O&M plan. But then there's also going to be a full replacement of cartridges at some point, and we haven't had a site get there yet, just because of we've only been seeing these for a while. But yeah, to your point, Stephanie, like if we can't tell, how is like the Mercedes-Benz dealership gonna tell, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's something that we're trying to get more data on that's real.
Starts coming out.
Yeah, that would be problematic.
Yeah.
Building on that though, Nicole, I mean, it seems like we need some wetter years to really understand where this is how this is gonna go. I don't know, it's kind of makes sense. Maybe this year becomes the year we start seeing some interesting results.
And you know, these are getting installed where typically there's new pavement, but if, you know, as that pavement deteriorates, that
It'll get worse.
accelerate.
Sediments.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting. We're always kind of talking about O&M and for these specific systems.
Intuitively, setting up a bunch of filters after a pre-treatment makes a lot of sense. I just don't know what it means long term. This is cool. Other questions for Brandon? Let's jump to 11. There's a lot to cover here. How do you want to deal with it?
Yeah, I'll just kind of walk through it quick. The first A and B or C or.
Happy anniversary.
Yeah. We be doing happy anniversary.
Yeah, it's crazy. Time is crazy.
24 years, you're 1 year away from having a full frontal mental load. Go, keep it.
So really take that one. I was gonna say now I'm 50, it feels like I'm going back to
I ain't talking about you, I'm talking about your.
trying to. There's not a lot for D or E. If we want to just jump right to F unless there's questions, we'll talk more about the Minnesota watershed stuff in the next meeting. Upcoming board meeting dates. Gabby, I realize that your name is spelled wrong here. I apologize for that. But just overview, I apologize for not just sending a message out before I did the packet. But we also have 2 members that are gone the second week of August. So I'm proposing that we go to the July 29th. We do have 1 member, Mark did let me know that he is not available on the 29th. Is everyone else available on the 29th? Stephanie, you said you were kind of like, if it has to be. Yeah. You are in the same boat, but so we could go back to just the regular meeting as long as the 3 of you promise to be there. To the August 5th. Yeah. I guess that I'll let you all kind of decide how you'd like to proceed, but those are our options right now.
So the fifth is preferred over the 12th.
Either way, we have two people missed.
Yeah, either way.
I prefer the 5th to the 29th.
And so Gabby would be gone on the 5th, correct? Yeah. 29, I can make it.
All right, let's just show of hands who prefers it on the 5th.
I do.
Yeah, I definitely do. There's a chance that I might be able to participate remotely on the 29th, but that's a push. Depending upon, but we don't know timing of Harold's medical thing, so.
Where you been?
I have no preference.
Available
I will
all
be here.
3 days.
Good man, Ben.
I'll be here. But you guys can figure it out.
How many folks do not prefer the 29th in terms of personal
Do
challenges?
not prefer the 29th.
Do not. I mean, Gabby, you were saying you didn't prefer the 29th.
Yeah, but it is the day before, so all good. Yep, thank you.
Sounds like either way around it, we're gonna get 3 people.
Yeah.
So I'm fine with the 5th. Still fine with the 5th?
You'll be able
I
to
would
leave.
prefer the 5th.
Yeah, I'll start studying tomorrow.
So it'll be just y'all 3, it's currently it.
Yes.
Yeah, and just a reminder, we need 3 to have a quorum.
Exactly 3.
Now,
We
that
drag
can be
ourselves
somebody
in.
online though. We have 1 member here in person. But yes, I do need 3
Would you?
to pay the bill.
So
And approve.
I guess we don't need a motion per se to move the meetings at this point.
Not if we're gonna keep it on the 5th.
I'm comfortable keeping on the 5th. Would you entertain receiving comments on the packet separately?
Yes, of course. Yeah.
Do that.
Okay.
Does that still give us enough time for the stewardship
Oh, yeah.
grant? Or did I say it wrong?
No,
Yeah,
the water
stewardship grant.
management plan.
No, the.
That one still should grant that they were going to.
Oh. I mean,
They said
we'll-
early August, so.
We'll work it out.
Yeah.
Perfect.
And are you okay with still moving the September one? The week for the watershed management plan?
What is-
Yeah, so we should motion September 2nd to 9th if people are comfortable with going to the 9th.
Just double check. Make sure that works.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
we would need a motion for that.
So I would move to shift the September 2nd board meeting to September 9th. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Perfect.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. All abstain, say abstain.
May I make a request? Can the office send out calendar? Market or ICF or
Yes.
just because sometimes,
Yeah.
for workshops.
Yes.
Which month is it?
Yeah, like a calendar appointment.
Yeah. the
Yeah,
calendar.
thank you. We will do that. All right, the next one is the stormwater reuse zoning board restrictions update. Ashley wrote this up for you all, but Paige was also at the meeting. The other day I was online, I wasn't in person, but I was online for that special meeting on June 23rd. This is informational, just want you to be aware that there's some things that are happening in that regard and that we're advocating, to.
At what point do you think it would make sense for the board to write a position paper to support the discussion?
TBD, I think, on that. I think there will be opportunities. There's a pretty coordinated effort amongst between Minnesota Watersheds and Cap Region has kind of taken the reins on leading some of this because they're actually in the process of trying to get reuse project approved, and one of the plumbing board members works for the city of St. Paul, so he kind of nicks. So they've been deep in the mix on this. So they've been coordinating, and I think they'll continue to do that. And there will be, I'm sure, a point where board support on
That's very.
that will be asked for.
So, yeah, that'd be great to
Yeah.
signal, we're ready to make an opinion.
Any other questions about that?
Yeah, it wasn't clear as to what the concern was.
So the Minnesota Plumbing Board is introducing new rules that in that rulemaking process, it specifically states that stormwater may not be reused.
And why, did they say why?
No, and that's been the biggest question, and that's, I guess I'm thankful that they're reopening the, what they call their ad hoc committee, and they're, they put a pause on the rulemaking because there really wasn't any opportunity to even understand why. If we don't know if it's a public health concern, but the public health agency spoke at this special meeting and said, well, we're already working on the public health, like we're already establishing guidelines for public health, but there's no moratorium on, just saying we're not going to do it, period.
This will be retroactive to existing projects.
That is also an unknown question. That's not clear. To me, it feels like it would have to be related to permit,
That's what I would think, just
Related.
kind of curious if
But
there's a financial hit that.
do seem to have some sort of power, some sort of structure that's not, maybe the oversight's a little different than what we see with some other agencies and permitting. So a lot more to come, I guess.
Curious, stormwater reuse, there's been in the works and discussed
Yeah.
in work groups for 10, maybe 15 years.
And they've been, even back when we did Maplewood Mall, there was concerns from them because we were taking roof runoff that went through an internal runnel, from the building to the cistern. So there was a little bit of a building connect, but when they're talking about completely outside of the building structure, so that's why Minnesota Landscape Association is concerned, because it could apply to irrigation systems, even materials that are used for irrigation, not just the reuse side of things, but even just in general, how people irrigate.
What's the scope of Minnesota Plumbers
Plumbing Board.
Board's jurisdiction?
That's also unclear. That's part of the issue, is they're really, in the past, it was at least clear to me that it was building related, any pipe plumbing related to a building. This feels like they've expanded that into,
Is it more of a labor union question?
they are also involved.
It seems like more of a labor union question to me, because,
And
Battle Creek, for instance, when we did the piping for the winter system, that was all governed by this because we asked for POAs and they said, yes, we want.
And is it coming from St. Paul and Minneapolis? Because that's where the strongest labor contingent of the pipe fitters and plumbers come from.
Can't say that I understand all of that. Yeah. It's just real concerning, and we really, honestly, they could have passed those, if Cap Region hadn't had that permit that they were trying to get approved for a reuse system, we may have never even known that those rules could have been adopted, and then we would have ran into it, down the road. But there's one of us.
More to come.
More to come.
It was, I will say, actually highlights, there were 30 people that gave comments. It was amazing, the number of people there, and I thought it would be all watershed people, but it was, yeah. She was
You let us know when we need to start helping.
Yeah.
there. I don't think it was recorded. It was a virtual option,
I think
but
it was recorded, but I don't know if it's public or how they use that.
We should welcome to the fray.
Yeah. Yes. All right, so then I have my budget memo discussion here for you. This is a typical format, kind of talking through our process. Looking at our 2026 work program review, we're halfway through that now, so that there are some trends and things I can see. As I mentioned, we're progressing, I would say, as to be expected at this point. Looking at some priorities for 2027, those are high level priorities. Continuing to hold a healthy reserve balance, healthy outlook, as you saw in our audit, that is to be the case, healthy financial outlook. Stop me if you have any questions or have any comments about any of these items. The watershed management plan implementation, we just talked at length about today. As you saw, many of those items that were already slated for 2027, so those will get put into the budget table for your review next month and in September as well.
I had a quick question on strategic priorities. I didn't know where best to put it. The question, it's associated to the work that we're doing to try to build automated mechanisms with those weirs. Where does that fall in y'all's eyes?
That would be part of
funding
investing in high priority capital improvement project.
Okay, so that would be a capital improvement.
Or
project.
maintaining infrastructure and assets. That kind of falls under a few different ones.
Yeah.
Supporting staff capacity.
I'm super happy with that. I just wanted to ask.
Yeah, so that work is being done right now.
It closed this year.
Yeah.
For at least what I recall. As we look at other ways and other mechanisms to automate, I assume it'll fall.
Yeah, the Phelan Keller work is being done right now, but then you'll see next year and the year after for the Tanner and Batter.
Okay.
Tanners
and so that'll fall generally in either capital improvements.
Yeah.
So that's what I'll.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Staffing and organizational support. This is where I talk about the potential of hiring a BMP inspection and maintenance specialist. I included the org chart that shows that that's really the last position right for this point that was being planned for filling at some point. If you have any thoughts or feedback, we talked a little bit about it during Kendra and Mary's presentation on inspections and maintenance, and about having support for that program, being able to do more. We have Cooper that is working as our intern in that position right now, and is doing excellent work. And we could really see expanding that. We see that as a need, a full-time year-round position. He's actually been with us now full-time he was in our communications and outreach intern, and so he kind of worked throughout the year, and definitely had enough work to do over the winter as well. So we see that as could fill a full-time position.
Given that earlier conversation that we had with Kendra and Mary's station, and also the conversation we just had now about filters, and it seems like this is going to be something we'll continue, and the position seems appropriate.
Yeah, I think too, some of the work that Mary and Kendra and Cooper and Nicole have done with reaching out to some of these bigger, like the school district work, they've been meeting with school district maintenance staff. They met with the apartment.
River apartment.
Yeah, the apartment. So like more of that work can happen too as we fill that position. There's a lot of education outreach work that can be done as well.
On that note, we're also hoping to have this person do more of the fluoride outreach, so going out and doing site assessments for winter management and hopefully promoting more of the grants.
Sites on board. Any concerns with that?
My first year joining, we were encouraging you to grow the organization. This makes sense.
Yeah, it feels like the right time. Like Paige just mentioned, some of the other efforts that we're trying to add in as well. It's helpful to have that support.
I don't know, my reaction to the various elements that you put in the memo. That was fairly complete and well thought out. So I don't know if you hear from us tonight about kind of what we're thinking individually.
I mean, if you have something specific, if you want to send it to me separate, or it can wait until the next numbers. and
August is gonna have our bigger package. You get
With the
allocation.
table and description.
Given that there's the three of us.
Yeah.
Is there? The last year or two, budget wise, I think we felt that much.
Tina and I had chatted about how do you present what is needed based off the workload we're hoping to anticipate and what we'd have to say no to in some instances for a zero flat levy because we always ask for it. So it's, I don't know the right pathway to do it, but there could be a mechanism to show you this preemptively. We discussed the package for budgeting. But I like her approach in terms of here's all the things we're shooting for. This is the wish list, this is the punch list, and then now we're gonna have the harder choices, making sure that we get to that zero levy potentially. Is that a fair summary of our conversation?
Yeah, I mean, I think we can have some good conversations too around if 0% is really should really be the target or not too. I think that's a discussion we should have. But I think it's helpful maybe first to see it all laid out, to see where we're starting from in the first place, and then how far we'd have to go to get to.
Based on what you provided, I guess I would be willing to entertain slight increase, given that we've been flat the last couple of years. Consider small increase, if that's one.
I think we need to see the items, cause it's like everything else, it's case by case. If there's a true need and we can't get there, I mean, you have to make a decision at that point.
Yeah, and I think too, we can, August won't be the one where we make that decision, right? We can, this is just like, here's the whole picture. We can publish for preliminary at whatever, percentage, but knowing that there's a different target that we're getting to. But, September, we can start really having that conversation, and then really December is when we make it.
Right. I do like the process in which we kind of start high and go low. I don't want to go low and bump. That would be my recommendation. But yeah, I think the items are needed. I think we got to manage what's absolutely needed versus the levy. Those are all good, healthy discussions that will come definitely September, November. I mean, all the way through December is. But we always typically ask for a 0% just to get a sense if we need a reference point. I think there will be a perspective for discussion as we go. That's kind of what I'm thinking. I can't think of a single year that we didn't ask you. Maybe 3 years ago.
I think it's been 3 years.
Yeah, about 3 years ago. Yeah. Cool.
Capital improvement and asset management, it's not a lot of detail in here. We're still working through a lot of that information, just so you know. I mean, I think you know our process. We have feasibility studies. We use our tools like the WARP tool. We're making decisions on priority projects for 2027, and we'll have a kind of a target number in the budget for that next month. The wetland restoration work, the direction has been, we had the cottage place, and now we have 2 others that are slated to move forward. One, with the plateau wetland restoration project plan for 2027. So we're keeping that process moving. We have kind of continual facilities and equipment. We talked about last month the McKnight Basin outlet and the needs for some extra maintenance on that. So we'll make sure that's included, as well as supporting the Gopher State 1 utility calls, which is new this year. And we have some time under our belt now to understand how many of those are coming in, how much it's costing, that kind of thing. So we'll make sure we get that built in. have some program highlights in here. Again, this is real general information, but you know, under natural resources, we did find out, and it is July 1, so I can't mention it now, but we did get grant funding.
Yay.
We, in particular, I guess this is jumping ahead, but we did get the grant funding for the Fish Creek Tributary project. We're very excited about that. That was an $850,000 grant. And the city of Woodbury got the grant for the Tamarack Nature Center.
They did.
So our nature preserve, thank you.
What did they publish online?
Yes, and the
Yeah, we-
Woodbury, roundabout.
And we had to wait till July 1 to say anything, so. So you'll notice Paul mentions that, or I mentioned that about Paul's natural resources program will be a significant partner with the city of Woodbury on that. So you'll see that in the budget as well for next year. Stewardship grants, you know, we've made a lot of changes, expansions, so continually evaluating that and looking at what participation we've had and what we're looking forward to in the future. Monitoring shouldn't change too much, but we always are evaluating equipment replacement needs and lab costs and how that all works. Communication and outreach, Lauren touched on a few things that she's been working on for the next year, so you'll see those in the budget as well. Research, continuing to support the Minnesota Stormwater Research Council that Paige serves on the board for. We haven't had John back maybe for a little while, but I have to get John Bellotta back to, you know, share the work that's being done there. That continues, I think, to be a good investment of our funds, as well as, you know, the benefit that we get from the research that's being completed and the learning that happens. And then I threw in a mention just of our DEIA work. We're working through developing our DEIA plan that you'll see probably in September as well. That's one of the things that'll be referenced in our plan, our big plan, but you should really see it kind of reflect through all the work that we're doing. That was a high level discussion. You know, next month, like we've already mentioned, you'll see the table with line item descriptions and a little more detail. In fact, now that we moved it back to the 5th, it'll probably be. I have a vacation in July too, so it was like I wasn't going to have as much time to get stuff in, but now I'll have a little more time. So, and then in September we'll do our public hearing for the preliminary budget and levy approval process. Send that to the county, and then, like I mentioned, it's a process all the way through until December when we do our final.
Sure.
Done.
So approaching 9 p.m. I'm going to ask if there's any pressing questions on 12. Item 12 in terms of the project and program status report. On 12. Manager comments for next month, item 13. Item 14, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Very good. Nobody tell me the score of that game.
Okay, I'm gonna.